I recently read a great quote which said that collaboration is not the gluing together of existing ideas when a group gathers to come up with new innovations. The quote said that collaboration is about the coming up with new ideas that didn't actually exist before that group came together. And that's the power of, I guess, shared creativity, common creativity. None of us is as smart as all of us. And in any organization, any business, in order to have the sort of ideas that'll keep you at the cutting edge, leveraging common creativity is vital. Now, historically, the way that we've done this is in the form of brainstorming. And I don't know about you, but I've sat through many brainstorming sessions that have been somewhat pointless, even frustrating, maybe a little bit misguided, and you leave the experience not feeling like you've really achieved much at all. And in his book, How to Use Creativity and Innovation in the Workforce, Patrick Collister, who's a leader in innovation and creative thinking, who comes from an ad agency background, gives some fantastic tips on how to make brainstorming work. How do you drive that collective creativity in a group setting? And a lot of it is down to the person who runs a brainstorming session. How do you facilitate that discussion so good ideas come to the fore? And from Collister's book, I wanted to draw on 5 tips, 5 keys to making brainstorming effective and not falling into the trap of it being an exercise that doesn't achieve much at all. The first key, he said, is the facilitator needs to come from a position of strength. So whoever's running the discussion, you need to be in that room, be in that discussion as someone who's got gravitas, but not too much. You need to be in a position where you've got authority so people will look up to you, but not so much authority that people feel they can't speak openly or share ideas that may be confronting or uncomfortable. So you need to come from a position of strength, but not too strong if you're going to be in that facilitator role. The second key as a facilitator needs to make sure that they moderate the tone and moderate the discussions of the meeting very, very carefully. You need to make sure that everyone knows that when they come into that room, titles are left at the door. There is no longer a hierarchy of good ideas. Everyone's ideas are equally valuable. And the facilitator's role is to moderate discussion so that the tone is a constructive one. In fact, one of the ideas that Collister suggests is a $5 cynicism fine. Anytime someone has a cynical response to an idea suggested, you deal with that immediately, and maybe even a $5 fine. That money then goes to charity, because that will monitor and set clear boundaries around the tone of the discussion. The third key, or the third role of a good facilitator, is to have a really clear plan. You need to know why the group has come together. What is the purpose? What is the goal? What is the problem that you are solving? Why is this brainstorming session occurring? But also you need to be clear before that discussion begins. How will you know when you've achieved that outcome? You also need to be clear with those who are part of the brainstorming discussion. You want dozens of good ideas, not hundreds. Narrow the scope. The more broad the scope is, if you want to have hundreds or thousands of ideas come out of an hour or 2 discussion, you'll find that none of them are very valuable. If you narrow the scope and say we want maybe 3 or 4 dozen good ideas, that sets a degree of focus which will often bring the best notions or the best creativity to the fore. The fourth key that Collister suggests to make brainstorming work is to have a good idea of the structure of a brainstorming session that will be effective. He suggests that the first 10% of any brainstorming session is about setting the purpose, setting the general intent, the ground rules for the session. The next 50% of that brainstorming session is around generating ideas. The next 25% is about discussing the ideas that have been suggested and voting on the best ones. Come up with a short list of the ideas you're going to take from this brainstorming session. And the final 15% is dedicated to coming up with an action plan. So that's the key. Brainstorming is not just about throwing a whole lot of mud at the wall. It's actually coming up with an action plan to take those ideas and create something from it. On top of this, Collister suggests that only have no more than 8 people in a brainstorming session and have a session that lasts for no longer than 2 hours, just to set some ideas or benchmarks around what works in collaboration within a group setting. The fifth and final key for any facilitator, and this is so important, is Collister suggests that facilitator in a brainstorming setup must remain neutral. If there's an idea suggested and you fail to put it up on the board or on the flip chart, that sends a very powerful message. So you need to make sure that you are separate from the conversation, and even if you've gone into that discussion with a set of unconscious biases, never let those show, or you will kill the discussion in that moment. So I hope those are helpful. 5 keys for making brainstorming work, because the best collaboration, the best ideas will often come in this format, but it's only if this format is used effectively.